Hi everyone, Hotthany Crush Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new BACKWOODZ album, Aethiopes. This is the newest full-length LP from New York rapper and BACKWOODZ Studios founder, Mr. Billy Woods. And at this point, what can I say about Woods that I have not already been saying for the past 10 years now? He is talented, he is perceptive, he is always on the cutting edge of abstract hip-hop, whether that's in his own solo stuff or in the duo Arm & Hammer with Elucid. He has a distinct voice, a distinct writing style, a flow that often borders on spoken word, and he has dropped so many impressive records over the past 10 years. History Will Absolve Me, Known Unknowns, Hiding Places, the More Mother record, the Arm & Hammer records, and that's just some of what he's done over the past 10 years. He's really built up one of the most impressive catalogs in underground hip-hop in this era, and his profile keeps growing, working with legendary producers like Blockhead. He's done crossovers with Earl Sweatshirt as well, which if you're in this lane, what more could you ask for? And on this record, he has the likes of Boldy James and LP and even Despot in the mix. Yeah, that guy really came out of the woodwork for this record, and I cannot believe that. And the full run of production from Preservation on this LP helps Billy dig even deeper into his trademark brand of esoteric grit, because each instrumental on this thing is really at the forefront of all of the abstract hip-hop trends we've been consuming over the past several years. All of the drumless loops and super obscure dusty jazz samples, very odd effects, and the unsettling and occasionally surreal feelings they evoke. For example, look at the aggressively droning reeds layered over each other on No Hard Feelings, or the head-bobbing rhythms and chopped up metallic tones on WHARVES. And like any good Woods project, nearly everything that you hear and see is just so pregnant with meaning. Don't assume because something kind of passed by you or didn't necessarily stick the first time around that there isn't some kind of layer to it. From the Rembrandt painting used as the cover art on this thing to the title being an old world term for Africans used by Europeans, to the opening lines on the very first track of this thing, making Mengistu Haile Mariam the record's first reference point. A militant politician whose bloody rise to power led to him governing Ethiopia through the latter half of the 80s, but was eventually removed from power, maybe because of some of the horrific things that I saw when I searched him up. But that's kind of the thing about Billy Woods. He like really gets the search engines going. Understanding the numerous reference points going into his tracks just adds so much to the meaning of what he's saying. Because on this opening track, Asylum, there are all of these images of razor wire, protective gates, security cameras, the hills being alive with landmines. Billy knows at this point how to paint a picture, and along with that, the fear and paranoia that comes with just holding yourself up in a fortress for protection. And I love that he leaves his descriptions on this track and many others open enough to literally view it as him telling you about some of the historical references he's making, or it could be, you know, a little more metaphorical here, and he could be just kind of telling you about a personal experience in a way. Though the closing vocal snippet on the track does reinforce themes of power and detention with undercurrents of African politics. So from the first track alone, it's very clear that Billy Woods on this project is not skimping on the density we have come to expect from him, which only seems to get deeper and darker as I fall into this record. Now from here, we could literally turn over every single stone that we come across on this or any Billy Woods record, and I think that approach to listening to his music is certainly valid. I mean, it does lead to a lot of informational gold and a lot of insight. It could also send you down a series of very cool contextual rabbit holes. But listening to this record also doesn't necessarily need to be a series of complex mathematical equations flying through your mind at any given moment, because by current abstract hip-hop standards, this thing is also just a joy to listen to. Yeah, you're not going to be putting this record on at the club anytime soon, but there are some supremely bone-chilling vibes throughout this thing I can't get enough of. The song No Hard Feelings, for example, that I mentioned earlier, has all of these twisting, winding synth layers folding over each other over and over into this sort of minimalist display. And the whole track is just undergoing this really intense ascent. Billy's lyrics here meet that moment by evoking imagery of the Challenger disaster, among other things. Burned bodies as well, also this chilling bar of a mad woman whistling. You can hear it if you listen. That's that empty pipe hissing, with the final verse portraying Billy in a hotel room alone where I guess he planned to meet somebody else. He's channel flipping. There's a bucket of champagne that was once iced and now it's just, you know, water. The way he paints getting curved in this moment has never sounded so devastating. Then the song WHARVES is so unsettling on multiple levels. All this imagery of war, cannibalism, empty huts and villages. It's incredibly sinister and most likely operating on a few metaphorical levels too, especially with referential tie-ins like shipwrecked Europeans swimming with the virus, shot out like God's semen, fuck the world pox screamin'. The following SAUVAGE features not only Gabe Nandez but Boldy James. Absolutely murderous beat on this one. The slow kick and snare pattern orbited by random little bits of noise, groaning pianos, a single guitar note as well. It's got some great Griselda vibes on it for sure, but done just a little darker, a little scarier. The robust verses from both Boldy and Billy live up to the title of the track, Wild, especially considering the setting Billy paints in his second verse on the track, with his bars speaking to these very high but normalized levels of violence, depravity, insanity, fear, paranoia. But yes, Billy and Boldy just give very complimentary chemistry on this one for sure. The track The Doldrums lives up to its title very much as well. The instrumental on this track is so skeletal, it's almost a spoken word piece. And it's kind of impressive how well Billy is able to keep pace and keep flow over this thing too, because it's just so bare with its tiny little cymbal hits and record static and deep kicks. In one breath, I do find the track to be a little long-winded, but still there are few rappers out there who could give as commanding a performance in this context. Then we are gifted on the song NYNEX with verses from Billy Woods, Elucid, Denmark Vesey, and Quelle Chris all on the same track, and Billy hits us with opening bars like, the future isn't flying cars, it's Rachel Dolezal absolved. And oh my god, what is this beat? Fluttering blues harmonica, ramshackle rhythms, muted guitar licks, plus sick lyrical standouts on this thing from everyone all around. I Do a Dance from 86, I'm a Simple Machine, Hammering the Myth, pulling it from the extreme, Hammer from 86, Hammer Dance. Dudes thought we was writing raps and we manipulate seasons, that's no cap and all caps at the same time. The song Christine is pretty devastating as well, and a testament to Billy's talent for painting a picture that as it unfolds in a linear fashion, in my mind, it just sounds like a movie. The transition this track makes into the song Heavy Water is stellar as well, which is yet another sick abstract hip-hop banger with all of these hammered dulcimers in the beat. Fantastically rickety rhythms too, and I love the lyrical chemistry on this one and the flow chemistry because Breeze Bruin, LP, and Billy Woods are all alternating across the entire track, hitting us with these little mini verses. For one, LP's alliterations in his bars are insane. Then Breeze hits us with bars like, my fight different, tight twisted, begat a nemesis and flight griffin, might flip and peg in a Pegasus, I'm a fiend, addiction is diction. And Billy did not say on this song, I come bearing gifts, rat fleas, cave bats, black exorcist, Clarence 13X had the white girl sick, shimmy down the steps with a wink, Jacobian experiments, gain of function in the kitchen sink. With the gain of function. Yeah, there's just like another level of insanity to Billy Woods records that you're just not getting anywhere else. From here, we move into a pretty strong final leg for the record too, starting with the song Harlem, which for one moment sees Billy Woods spitting very aggressively over this strange, dusty piano loop with some guitar and with some organ, but then from there, he starts spinning after a transition over like some free jazz piano that's going absolutely nuts. Is this my favorite track on the record? Not necessarily, but it does add to this generally unhinged energy that makes Aethiopes so special. Versailles instrumental is a fantastic slow-mo reggae flip, it sounds like. Also features Despot, who I mentioned earlier, who hasn't had a major feature that I've heard in years. And lyrically, he does not skimp on this one, and I would actually argue he kind of steals the show too. Remorseless is another great track, another change of pace in the progression of this record record too, with Billy delivering these emotionally devastated bars about isolation, the feelings of that enhanced by the watery guitars and weepy synth leads. I really do think it's one of his saddest songs ever, and that's saying a lot, considering like from how many dark places Billy has written over the years. Smith and Cross I also found to be a beautifully intense track that gives the record a real sense of finality too. Final thoughts on this LP, I'm loving it, of course, and it's not as thematic or as blatantly conceptual as some other records he's put out in the past. It feels almost like a mirror in a way, a mirror being pointed at this current landscape of abstract hip-hop, and Billy just dominating it creatively to the best of his ability, and just bringing along some great features and beats on the way. Because regardless of what wave or instrumental palette that he's on, he brings a very specific Billy Woods pizzazz to it that only he can bring through his storytelling, through his references, through his opinions and perceptions of the world, through his knack for storytelling and for wordplay. It's also really interesting to think of Billy's artistic progression from a record like History Will Absolve Me to this new record now, because his old stuff on many of the most topical tracks, like what was going on, what was being spoken about, what was described, felt so concrete and felt so material. And while that is true to a degree on this latest LP here, there's something about it that feels so fragmented as well. And even with that transition kind of slowly happening more and more over time, there is an intensity about it still, an emotional intensity, maybe even more so than his older stuff, that is really difficult to put your finger on, but it's like, it's there. It's there to the point where it's like enveloping. It's like air. You can't see it, but you know you're breathing it in deeply. You can sense it in the area around you. And I will leave it there. I'm feeling a strong 8 to a light 9 on this LP transition. Have you given this record a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit up that or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Billy Woods, forever.